I've gone back and forth about whether to share this. It's been about 2 years now, and I still think about it more than I should. My therapist says writing about it might help. I don't know if I believe her, but here I am. My name is Marcus. In the spring of 2022, my girlfriend Diane and I moved into a rental on Pembroke Lane, a little residential street on the outskirts of a mid-sized city. The kind of neighborhood where people mow their lawns on Saturday mornings and wave from their driveways. The house was a modest 2-bedroom, with a sunroom Diane immediately claimed as her art studio. I remember her spinning around in it the day we toured the place, arms stretched wide, laughing. I hold on to that image now because of everything that came after. The neighbors directly across the street were named Tom and Sylvia Harding. Tom introduced himself the second day we were there, jogging across the street while I was unloading boxes. Big warm smile, firm handshake, mid-40s, broad-shouldered, the kind of guy who looked like he coached Little League on the weekends. Sylvia came over that evening with homemade jam and a welcome card written in careful, looping handwriting. She was soft-spoken and pretty, with dark circles under her eyes I assume were just tiredness. They seemed like genuinely good people, the type of neighbors you felt lucky to have. For about a month, everything was fine. Then things started feeling slightly off. The kind of off you don't immediately name. Sylvia stopped coming outside. I'd see Tom leaving for work, coming home, chatting easily with other neighbors. But Sylvia, who had been gardening in the front yard when we first arrived, who'd seemed just as warm as him, simply disappeared from view. Her car sat untouched in the driveway for days at a stretch. I mentioned it to Diane, and she said that maybe the woman worked from home and was introverted. That made sense. I let it go. Then one night around 2 a.m., I went downstairs for water and looked out the kitchen window toward their house. Every light was off, but Tom's silhouette was visible in the upstairs window, completely still, just standing there looking out. I watched for almost a minute before I made myself walk away. About 6 weeks in, I ran into Tom at the end of our driveways and asked how Sylvia was doing. His answer came instantly, too smoothly. Oh, she's been dealing with some health stuff, keeps her pretty low energy. He smiled the whole time. Not the warm smile from the first day, something flatter behind the eyes. He changed the subject immediately, and I let him, because what else do you do? I almost left it alone after that. What stopped me was a Sunday afternoon when I was reading near the front window and saw the upstairs curtain at their house shift, just barely. And in the gap, a hand pressed flat against the glass. A woman's hand. It stayed for a few seconds, then was gone. That was all. But it sat in my chest like a stone for the rest of the day. After that, I started paying closer attention and hated myself for it. I noticed Tom was handling all the groceries alone. I noticed Sylvia's name had been replaced on the mailbox with just T. Harding in fresh marker. One evening walking past, I heard what sounded like crying from somewhere inside. Brief, then nothing. I drafted a call to the non-emergency line in my head a dozen times. I think something might be wrong with my neighbor. A hand against the window. A mailbox label. It just sounded absurd. Diane thought I was spiraling. Then Tom knocked on our door one evening with a bottle of wine, just being neighborly. He was perfectly pleasant, asked about Diane's art, made easy small talk. But at some point he looked at me and said, almost amused, "You know, I've noticed you watching the house sometimes." I stammered something about sitting near the window out of habit. He laughed and said he understood. Then he left. I stood in my kitchen and couldn't move for a full minute. That night I called. I told the dispatcher everything. The hand, the crying, the mailbox, the months without seeing Sylvia, Tom's comment. An officer came the following afternoon for a welfare check. Tom answered on the first knock. Calm, cooperative, easy, smile already in place. The officer went inside. I watched from the window, barely breathing. 10 minutes passed. Then I saw the second patrol car turn onto Pembroke Lane. Then a third. Then I saw an ambulance moving with that quiet urgency that feels worse than sirens. I was outside before I decided to move. Tom was in handcuffs by the time I reached my driveway, still composed, no struggling. That same flat expression, like a man accepting the minor consequences of a minor miscalculation. He never looked across the street at me. Not once. I found out what happened in pieces. The responding officer, during his walkthrough of the upstairs hallway, noticed a deadbolt on the outside of a bedroom door, the kind of lock with no logical purpose, except to keep someone in. He called it in before he even opened the door. Sylvia Harding was on the floor of that bedroom, chained by the ankle to a radiator pipe. severely dehydrated, disorientated, with injuries consistent with months of prolonged abuse. The curtain near the window was displaced at the edge, just enough of a gap for a hand to reach the glass. She'd been up there the entire time, while I read on my couch, while Diane painted in her sunroom, while Tom jogged across driveways with his warm smile and his welcome jar of jam. Tom had been sending messages from Sylvia's phone himself, to her family, her friends, the officer from the first welfare check, carefully composed, naturally spaced, warm enough that nobody pushed back. A performance maintained for months without a single visible crack. Sylvia survived. I want to say that clearly. She was hospitalized for a long time and I never saw her again after that day, which I think was the right outcome. Tom was charged. I followed the case until I had to stop for my own sake. Diane and I moved out shortly after. The lease made it necessary, and neither of us could have stayed regardless. Some places hold the shape of what happened in them. I think about the version of this where I listened to Diane, where Tom's whine and his easy manner were just convincing enough, where I never made the second call. That version of this story has an ending I can't look at directly.